Good afternoon. The February 11th, 2025 work session and public hearing is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Mr. Susan? Here. Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Trent, you had the wrong date on there.
Yeah, I know.
Just for correction.
Corrections, not February 11th, but Dr. Rendell, will you speak to the board about the items on the agenda today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On today's agenda, we have a public hearing and rule development on policy revisions and 3 presentations. The 3 presentations are about our career pathways within the CTE field, a presentation on the upcoming financial literacy course, and a presentation on the Alternative Learning Center review for the future.
All right. I think the first one's up. Ms. Harris? Oh, we are. Yes, we are. All right. The public hearing is now open to the public comments. We will, in accordance with Florida law, accept the speakers on the following policies. First one up is 0169.1, public participation at board meetings. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? All right. Next is 2421 Career and Technical Education Program. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Next is 3120 Employment of Staff. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Next is 3120-04 Employment of Substitutes, Short-Term Contract, and Part-Time Staff. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 3430 Leaves of Absence. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 5112 Entrance Requirements. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 5121 Controlled Open Enrollment. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 5225 Absences for Religious Holidays. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 5500 Student Conduct. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? 5630 Corporal Punishment and Use of Reasonable Force and Restraint. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? 5771 Search and Seizure. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 7217 Weapons. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? 9271 Personalized Education Program. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? This concludes our public hearing on policy revisions. The first topic on the agenda today is career pathways with CTE. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the board may recall that in January we had an off-site meeting. And one of the things we did at the off-site was ask the board to generate any topics of interest that they would like to get more information on, any projects they wanted the district to start to work on or anything like that. So the first one that we're going to cover today is the career pathways that do exist within our career and technical education programs and opportunities for future pathways and or partnerships. The discussion at the offsite was, hey, some of our CTE programs have strong partnerships with local businesses in the community and the street receive strong support, but not all. And so what areas do we have strong partnerships that not only support the programs in their instruction and in school, but also with possible internships and placement, job placement after school, and then what areas could we focus on to improve? So Tara Harris, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and Rachel Rutledge, the Director of Career and Technical Education, are here to present all of that information. So this is kind of a response to your request for more information in this area.
So what you will find is from the bulk of the presentation, we're going to highlight where we have partnerships with industry partners, but also how they're helping us inform as we open new programs and to make sure that our current programs stay relevant. At the end of the presentation, we won't go over the school-by-school slides. That was just for your benefit, so just as a reminder of where all of our programs are offered by slide. But we also have, you have a folder, a green folder, and that, when we go into the presentation, that's going to be by program, a connection to not only the school sites, but which industry partners are supporting and driving the instruction so that we are ensuring that our programs are meeting the needs of the workforce by having that articulation back and forth.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone today. Happy CTE month. I want to invite you just for a minute, if you're not following the CTE Facebook page, to please do so. We've had an amazing month of showcasing all of our students and teachers throughout the district. All right. I'd also like to apologize in advance. There's no way I'm going to capture every single partner on our slide, so I want to apologize in advance for perhaps leaving someone off. The goal today is for you to understand the types of experiences and partnerships that we have within the district, but also to ask you for some help in some other areas to continue to grow what we're doing in CTE. L3 Harris, one of our logos up here. We have designed a signing event with them in the past, and they have provided specific career opportunities just for graduates from our CTE program. Junior Achievement, another one represented here. They have restarted the Tiger Shack at Cocoa High School. They're hiring our interns from our business CTE program there. They help us with job fairs and recruitment fairs. They're also leading a full program called JA Hope at both Heritage and Cocoa. Cocoa Beach Rotary, they have adopted multiple CTE programs at Cocoa Beach Junior Senior. If you take a look in your folder on the red tab, page 1, this is our Adopt a CTE program application, where we are asking our partners to engage in a variety of ways. That could be through guest speaking opportunities, it could be through internships. There's many ways that businesses want to partner with us. Embraer has hosted an aviation day specifically for our underserved students at middle school. They're able to come in, and they've listened to Captain Barrington Irving for the past couple of years, and he's really inspired the kids there. CareerSource has been helping us significantly by providing us with data to help support our needs for the industry funding list, the master credential list that then turns into the CAPE list. They have been a big help with that. They're also working, we're trying to figure out a way for them to pay some of our interns that qualify over the summer to use their funds, and so that we can blend funding a bit. Wharton Smith came in and worked with our construction teachers last summer and just talked to them about curriculum involvement and industry certification alignment. So that's one way that we've been working. One of the biggest features of our CTE programs, though, is when we're trying to get a brand new CTE program off the ground. I know, Ms. Campbell, you were there at the Electricity Advisory Group. We pulled together a lot of stakeholders at the table to help us figure out what curriculum needs do we have, what certifications should be offered, what should our facilities look like, what equipment is needed to teach. We engage with our content experts, especially when we do new programs. I know Ms. Harris talked about the Automotive Service Excellence Advisory Group that she went to. That is one of our shining stars. So is the Propeller Club. If you haven't had an opportunity to engage with them, they very much guide our maritime program at Rockledge and have been strong supporters around with being able to bring students onto their facilities and do tours. Firefighting as well. We really called upon our partners in that way. The Brevard Zoo served as a very strong partner for us as we were building out the aquaculture program at Cocoa Beach. Other partners, the Economic Development Commission. Just last week, I received an email from them connecting me with a new manufacturing business in our community. So we reached out to the HR folks and said, how can we engage with our partners to lead directly into the workforce? With the new Lockheed Martin expansion that's coming out, I reached out directly to them and said, how can we help? We know there's going to be a workforce need, and we'd love to partner with these organizations to provide the qualified workers that they need. Florida Tech, Eastern Florida, Embry-Riddle, they all serve a very important role for pathways if the kids aren't just going directly to work, but are going into the post-secondary experience. Our BPS facilities team, I've been talking with Sue and her team to figure out what a pipeline would look like to fill our needs in Brevard Public Schools. And I've had an opportunity to meet with a national recruiter for Northrop Grumman. We're nearing the end of some of those conversations, so hopefully we'll have some important news to report on that soon. And these are just some of the partnerships that we have. They're pockets of excellence in different programs and in different areas. And we want to continue to grow just to provide the kind of experience for our students that they need in the classroom. I'm not going to go through all these internship partners, but I want you to see them. In every career cluster that we offer here, we have partners that have said, yes, I'm willing to take on an intern and work to train them to lead directly into my business.
Ms. Rutledge, can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Do we collect data as far as each one of these individual partners, how many students we're actually hiring every single year that are coming out of some of our CTE programs? I know that might be extensive, but is that something we're
Well,
tracking?
No, we're not tracking it like that. We do have reports that we get from the state that say these are the students that are concentrators that have moved on into either post-secondary or into the workforce, but it's not that granular.
Okay.
I do like the idea, though, to find out how we're truly meeting those workforce needs. I'll provide just a little bit of survey data to you in a minute.
Okay.
Where the students have said, this is where I'm headed. So
Okay.
it would be nice to be able to survey them on the back end.
Yeah,
find out where
absolutely.
they're
And maybe that's
landing.
part of the application process on,
Yeah.
and just asking them, are they willing to give the feedback back to the district on whether they're hiring our students and maybe some skills that they maybe see or need improvement for so that our programs can strengthen.
Absolutely.
The
Thank
hard
you for
thing
that.
is, once the students leave us, then
I know.
it's hard to track them if they're not, especially if they're not going into post-secondary. Yeah.
Yes,
On
we
the
have that
employer
data
side.
for where the interns are going, but I think, Ms. Wright, you're asking like once they graduate, if they're landing there, that would be a nice enhancement to the data we already have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we make it specific to where, to the partners that we have interns at, even though the students move on, we still have a relationship with them, we should be able to gather that data pretty quickly.
And then also
Yeah.
something that would be good, apologize, Mike's speaking more. One of the other things would be great is City of Cocoa does X, Y, Z. Merritt Island does X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? Because I know, putting these up here, I know what some of these do. I don't know what some of the other ones do, and I do know there's some people that like to put their name up and support us, but they don't do a whole lot that we can lean on to do more. You know what I mean? So if there's a way that says like hired 2 interns and X, that would be great, because I think that a lot of them, like I met the intern from Wharton Smith. I know that some of these things are moving. It's just, it would be nice to have an overall list. That's all, if you have that already.
Okay. Something we can work on.
Yep.
All right, so one of the other things that I was asked are, what are some of the barriers to partnership? One of them, as we're talking about the internship piece, is if the students aren't 18 years old. In some organizations, it's a hard stop. You know, when we're dealing with defense contractors, it's just what is. But other ones, we're still moving slowly at getting those kids under the age of 18 into the organization, even though the state provides workers' comp reimbursement and provides the experiential tax credit of up to $10,000 a year. We're still hitting some barriers with that, specifically with our skilled trades. Also, transportations to internships, that could be a barrier to students. Stipends, maybe the organization doesn't have money to pay them, so we're looking at that. Specific content area partners are difficult to identify. Yes, healthcare, digital arts, they are my most difficult ones to align. You think about digital arts, it's really in every organization. It's just finding the need that would fulfill a student's schedule to work that many hours every week to do that kind of work. And healthcare continues to be a challenge. So any contacts you have there are much appreciated that can help get the work done. Also, the expectations for partnership. Sometimes, like just with what you were saying, Mr. Susan, sometimes the partner wants to provide funding. Another one wants to get in the trenches and provide internship. And so finding the right alignment between the partners and what the needs are for the specific program are also pretty challenging. And then as we talk about new program creation, there's very specific content expertise required. We might have a massive organization like NASA, and I'm trying to open a new aerospace program, right? And I've found somebody from NASA that helps, but it's not the right person that has the right kind of content knowledge. So getting down and finding who the right people are within these organizations is something I could use your help with. And managing the varying goals, like union goals versus non-union with electric, just trying to manage that piece to get the right programs in place. Some of the ideas that I had about ways to assist would be, one, helping identify those correct contacts within the organizations. You have a broad repertoire of contacts. Just making the introduction, passing it off, and I'll be glad to walk that out so we can get to the right people. Because we are preparing our students with the skills they need to go into the workforce. Also, assist in sharing the need for teachers. I was just mentioning to Ms. Campbell, we've got this beautiful new electricity program that's coming in soon, and I'm still looking for a teacher. So any contacts you can have to help make that come to fruition would be great.
Did you guys get a hold of the IBEW in Merritt Island to ask them if they have anybody? Did you guys get a hold of them?
Yes. They were
Okay.
sitting, maybe you send me the name of whoever you talk to.
Okay.
And we
Yeah,
can
it's
go
just
from
they,
there,
they
but
have
yes.
they have their whole eastern, area union shop there. So,
Okay. But yes, somebody from IBEW was on the advisory group. But if you know somebody specific, please, would
usually
love to talk to
their
them.
business managers are the ones you want to talk to because they're the ones that know that retirees and who they're grabbing and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
plus they're more than excited to have people as interns, working inside of their stuff. Just like I brought the plumbers and pipe fitters from Post 295 in last year, met with you guys and everything else. They turned out to be a great partner.
That was Brett, correct?
Brett Mursky and them. Yeah, there's a lot of those. Okay, good. Yep.
Yeah.
So
And
how would we do that, Ms. Rutledge? Like, besides just sending you an email, right?
Right.
So like our manufacturers across our county, being able, one of the arguments that we have is we take all of our kids and we say, hey, we're going to go up to the Space Center because the Space Center's got all these major manufacturing, major industry kind of people, but they only hire like 10 kids, right? Like they have massive operations, but they're only hiring. But we do have over 500 manufacturers in this county, right? That is impossible to chase down for your staff, right? But the other thing is that they have between 10 and 100 life companies, like employee company counts, that could definitely use onesie, twosies, threesies, right? And they have consistent work forever. So it's not like these are like startups. So the question is how do we access to them? I know that you had a very successful program with the automotive programs. You had them all come in. I heard about that. It was great stuff. Maybe the idea is that we do an announcement where we bring them all in and we have all of the conversation wrapped around the workers' comp piece, because I have that argument with them. I do insurance for a living. I know I've opened that door for a lot of my manufacturers outside of this county, but a lot of them don't know, and their insurance companies don't know that it's okay, right? Their consultants aren't very good. They don't know that the carriers will allow it if they have the conversation. So if you would like, I would like to do this. I work with the Central Florida Manufacturing Association on stuff. What I can do is we can call all the manufacturers here to a meeting and have them go through something like that if you're interested.
I'd be happy to do that.
I mean, that way I can
Sure.
help. I mean, if you're not already going to do it.
Another idea, since we're going to ping pong ideas
Yeah,
back
let's
and
go.
forth here. So one of the things I think that's very unique is obviously all the different programs that are specific to each school. So we don't have a technical college, but we have them specific to each school. I love the idea of being able to grab our business partners, let's put them on a bus and let's bring them and see it in action at the schools. So maybe if we just devoted like, okay, this week we're going to do District 1, this week we're going to do District 2, and then work alongside that board member and we'll help round up some business partners to really get them to come in, because I think that could also build some valuable relationships there, and they can see what we're doing. And maybe we can nudge them into saying how many of our kids are going to hire and get a commitment there, because we want to make sure it's leading to job placement,
Absolutely. And our teachers love to showcase their programs. And
Yes.
the students are, you've seen them in action. They're highly impressive.
I have.
Love
So
to
I
do
would
that.
love to do that. So if that's something like a CTE tour, I know we did something like that in the past, but bringing specific partners that are really honed in on whatever that trade is that we're working on. And they're on the bus that day because we're going to go look at whatever it is that we're offering.
What we did in the past.
We
was-
did that 3 years ago. I've got my T-shirt hanging in the closet.
know,
It's time to do it
tours.
again. Yeah, we did it.
I remember seeing them on the internet when they were going on, but I didn't see the business partner side of it. And I
No.
don't know
Yeah.
if, like, were there actual companies that came alongside you guys and
Yeah.
went in there?
Yeah.
There
So when
was?
we went, so for example, we went to Mel High,
We had some construction guys. We had, oh my goodness, we had Health First people because they have the CNA program, and we had, oh my goodness,
We had some IT
cybersecurity.
folks as
We
well,
had some
yes.
cybersecurity folks come in and talk. So it definitely can be done again because there's more partners than would come. And plus, we invited some city council people, some county commissional people, so that it was a broader scope.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to do something specific, I mean, I absolutely support it. We don't have to have T-shirts this time, but that was sure fun.
T-shirts are
Nice.
necessary,
It was
but.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so when we did the tours, we were in the process of doing it, and the reason that it was kind of, didn't have a lot of participation in the beginning is that I just went to O'Galley and started doing it, right? And then Mullen said, this is a great idea, and he started rolling with it. So the thing is that I think that if we did it, like she said, and Ms. Campbell said, where we're organizing it ahead of time and we're doing it, we could get something off before the end of the year where we are all touring our facilities, inviting the companies that are within the area to that check. But if we give them, 30 days ahead, unfortunately, my modem and the way I work is just, hey, let's do it like next week, right? And they're not going to get there. But it did get the press out. It did get it pushed out. So I would love to do something like that. Absolutely, Ms. Wright. I mean, I think that's amazing. It's great. We
And I
CTE
appreciate-
tours, we made T-shirts and everything, right?
I appreciate the feedback. The
Yeah,
tours were
yeah.
amazing when we did those, but I also really like the idea of the specific advisory groups because we have that for many of our programs, but there are others where we could use additional support. I
Yeah.
would love to be able to send our teachers over the summer to these organizations. We have something like that, Teachers in Industry, where they go learn and keep their skills refreshed. But I would love for them to come in and see what we're doing and engage with the students in that way.
When I was at O'Galley in 2012, I took over the business partner program and put together the thing where it's kind of laid out the way it is now too, where you don't have to give money. You can also give an internship. You can speak. You can do that stuff, but you can be a part of the program. I think that if we had that tour, and as part of the tour, right afterwards, we had our ask with some of the kids. That was very successful. We got the news out, but we weren't able to pull the industry in because I moved quick on that 1 year. So I would love to do that. And I have all the businesses broken down by zip code too, so I can help you identify if you need them. Because some of them are out there, you don't even know they're out there,
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to give you just a little bit of feel-good information today from our students because it's what makes our job fabulous, right? We surveyed our high school completers of CTE programs, okay? So these are kids that have had 3 classes in a single CTE program. We had 687 respondents, 142 plan to attend a trade school after graduation, 329 plan to work in a field related to their CTE program. That's awesome. So it's making a difference is what I read from here. And when I asked, did your CTE program help you with your decision? 243 said absolutely. Some said yes, somewhat, and others said I'd figured it out already. So really good response rates from our students. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I want to give you a couple that made me smile. The CTE courses I've taken have been wickedly important for my future decisions. Just wanted y'all to hear that. One said, couldn't be better. My instructor is fabulous. I probably wouldn't know what to do after high school if it wasn't for this class. And you saw a whole bunch of statements about that within the survey, and it just pleased me to know that our students are really interested in what they're doing and loving their instructor and their environment. As we continue to try to tackle this topic of workforce needs and that gap, we've got to start doing more at the early stages with students to get them engaged. Some of the things we're doing right now is initial career exploration through our elementary STEM. They do have a component of CTE, they're earning digital tools, but they're also, like you see these kids here, are learning about agriculture. So we don't expect kids at that age to be learning all about jobs in agriculture, but they're getting interested in a particular topic and it can grow from there. We've also expanded elementary program at Vieira and at Manatee. They have teachers that are focused on specifically CTE. My team has gone out and spoken with the elementary counselors to help them understand what options are when they get to middle or high school. We have videos of our CTE programs. Janet's team has been going out and highlighting specific programs, but we also have a lot of other videos as well, just to help kids understand what these programs entail. We've talked to elementary assistant principals, Parent leadership team, we're going next week to talk with them, just to make sure, spread the good news about all the cool things that are happening in CTE. Taking middle school kiddos to the high schools to see what their learning experience could look like. Any kind of marketing and promotion we can do, we try to do. And also Tigbee and Zello, these are opportunities for kids to engage in exploration, either work-based learning exploration or just career exploration from elementary to middle. Yes?
When we have those middle school students go to the high schools to see the community, do we invite the parents to come too?
They do have opportunity to do that at the curriculum fairs. So when they're highlighting their CTE program, the parents are
Yeah.
coming from the middle schools, and so then they can tour that. But when they go during the day, it's usually a student field trip.
And when you say that tour, like is that at the school or is that up here? Because I remember, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not trying to read your mind. I just,
No, yeah.
when you say, I just know that when they go for their career and curriculum nights, they're going
Okay.
as a prospective
Okay.
student to that high school.
Yeah.
And so the parents are able to go with the students and see in the program and see
Okay.
what it looks like. And the teachers are there highlighting their program, like, here's what our program has to offer. And a lot of times, those are within the feeder band. So like, if I'm a Jackson student, I'm touring Titusville High, but we do advertise those so that if I am a Jackson student, but I want to go visit the welding program, I have that opportunity because they
Good.
can choice into programs.
And how do I, if I'm a parent that goes to, say, Space Coast, that I'm zoned in Port St. John, how would I know about the welding program at Astronaut? How would that happen?
So we have the document and we advertise it through our choice opportunities. So when
Okay.
they apply for location, they can
see
obviously
that.
also do
Okay.
the EPO. That would be an area of opportunity, I think, for us to really let parents know, because we do hear like, well, I live here, but there's this program, but just highlighting outside of your feeder band, how we can better communicate that to our parents, that they have choice and where are the programs within where they feel comfortable with their child going.
When we did a survey with the EDC years ago where they asked to get information from parents on how do you think about manufacturing? This was years ago when Matt Reed was our guy that was in the communications department. And we sent the survey out and it got like very dismal kind of response, right? And everything else. So I asked him, I said, can I just send a letter home from the Brevard schools on letterhead with a QR code? And it exploded. So just so you know, like maybe sometimes letters home, it was the most well-received.
I will tell you, I'm gonna jump in here because I have a student that's in a junior senior who's now transitioning over to the senior side of the junior senior. And this year is the first year, I find it very interesting, a lot of recruitment letters have come
Good.
from different high schools
Good.
around in
I was going
Brevard
to say,
County.
as a recent
Yes.
one who just went to high school a couple years ago, we got invitations from
So-
other schools.
And
that we
they
could have
are
gone to,
very
yeah.
good at highlighting what is unique about their school and why your student should come to their school. So I'm sure that there's probably a little animosity there between principals on, hey, stop poaching my students kind of deal. But I'm just telling you, it happens. We see a lot of them. I've seen a lot in my own personal household.
Great
so.
job, great job.
And
Thank
that's
you
where
for
we can
sharing.
also talk quite a bit about transferable skills with our programs. Like, let's say, for example, at that junior senior example, that the senior doesn't have a welding program. They do have an HVAC program where the kids get a little bit of welding, like they have a whole welding section. So talking, if transportation is an issue, they have opportunities on their campus to get some of the skill set that they would get in the full program.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I also wanted to address the EPO, the Choice Educational Program option. We have an opportunity right now in our current structure for students to choice into another school part-time and not leave their zone school. And this is taking place at 10 of our schools right now. So is there room to grow? Absolutely, but families know about it. They know that they can take advantage of this. We have a lot of homeschool interest in this as well. So those kids are coming on our campuses specifically for these programs right now.
And I know we've had the conversation about the PEP thing, and I know we're just starting to get off the ground, but I think this is one of the most attractive programs for our PEP families use some of their scholarship money to come in. And so as we get, I know that makes it complicated because there are more costs sometimes to these programs, but then there's a funding source, right, if they pass the test. So I can't encourage that enough that when we get ready to open that up, that we open that up to these opportunities. I say that knowing that we also have within our choice realm, once we reach a capacity in a program, then a teacher can only have so many kids in the program. So there is the possibility of a program being filled out with PEP, homeschool, whatever opportunities. So as long as the timelines are fair, so that everybody has those same kind of opportunities, that window of applying is the same for everybody, regardless of where they're coming from. I think this is a good opportunity to draw people in.
One of the things we used to do, and you may have remembered it, Ms. Rutledge, is we looked at allowing our instructors to teach twice a week at night, and it never went anywhere because it was just one of those things that we had, like, it was a good idea fairy, right? It was this thing out there. But there's a lot of families and people and students that would love to take career and technical classes at night, that may be homeschool, private school, something like that. And I know that a lot of our instructors were interested because it would be extra money, that they would work 2 nights a week or something like that on a specified curriculum so that they could do it. So I don't know if you guys have a temperature for that. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested. I don't even know if the board would be interested in allowing it. It just was really positive, but we just got so busy with COVID is what happened. It wiped it out as an
We've
idea.
trialed something like this just in the last few months at Bayside. Our machining teacher has been working alongside the Space Coast Consortium Apprenticeship Program. So he's been working in the evenings for a period of time alongside them to get the kids through the pre-apprenticeship certificate. And so he's getting extra pay for having participated in that. And I think it's a model that could work. It's just depending on student interest, teacher interest, and partner
It was
support to make it happen.
Where we saw a lot of traction, and this is just me talking again, it was funny because a lot of parents wanted their kid to learn how to change their oil. So they were willing to sign up for a class for 2 days on how to change your oil. And we had a lot of them getting interested in that kind of stuff. So just an idea, you know what I mean? Something that we could maybe do to show off the programs a little bit too.
I don't actually know the
That was
answer to this
O'Gallagher.
question. Is there anything that would prohibit a current BPS student from taking one of our adult ed classes for topics like that? Are they prohibited from doing both sides of things?
There are some rules
Okay.
associated with that. Lori Benjamin is much more knowledgeable about all of that,
Yeah.
but I know there are some rules.
Right,
Yeah,
because I know sometimes they offer classes that aren't necessarily towards a GED or towards a certification, or whatever, but they'll just offer like photography for the community or painting or whatever. If there was a short course on auto repair and things like that, because the adult ed has the flexibility in their schedule. They teach night classes and things like that. I didn't know what the rule on that was.
It was developed, and the main reason is that adult ed has 3 campuses that are kind of stretched out. We have those automotive programs at O'Galley, was where we saw some of the interest. And it was the teacher said, I would love to put together a curriculum of this, and this, right? And this is like we would do, how to change oil here, do this, and then charge whoever it was that came in. They made a little bit of extra money, and the families got together and they did some stuff. That's all.
Yeah.
If we don't want to go down it, I like the adult ed. I just don't know if they're set up with the automotive. And there's, some of them you have to be in an automotive shop to do. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's why that was run. And I don't really care. There hasn't interest in it, but it might be something that we can do for our automotive teachers to raise a little bit of extra money for them and get
I
involved.
think it's worth
like
exploring
a
just to see
camp.
what the community interest is, right?
Almost like a camp.
Yeah,
Like
it's-
for
it's what-
coaches, football day, they do camps.
I would love to take my kids to do it too. So.
And that's a great time to, we're a little early, and I know this is for the conversation, and it's not part of this presentation, but you will see soon in some of our summer programming opportunities for CTE boot
Excited
camp,
about that.
exactly for that reason that you're discussing.
Woohoo.
Very exciting.
Maybe that's the time to do it. It's perfect.
One thing I just want to plug, I had the opportunity to sit down with Chief Barrick from the fire department, and they are working hard to recruit students for their fire program. I love this idea of a hometown hero kind of educational program that really encompasses law enforcement, firefighters, medical field. Just want to throw that out there. I'll give you his phone number to contact with him because he's got money available for students to really put them through Fire Academy and get them ready to go. So they're doing everything they can to try to fill the void there for the firefighters that they've lost. So
Great, thank you. All right, and before we go into questions, I want to just share with you a little bit about what you're looking at within your folder here. I'm going to look at Astronaut as an example, knowing that you can kind of follow through these with each of the schools as you choose. To talk about pathways, let's look specifically at the green tab on page 2. All right, what we've done here is we've created these one-pagers that show the career cluster. So architecture and construction is the career cluster. The pathways that fall into that are architectural drafting, construction, carpentry, technical design. Then what we have are the middle school courses that align to those high school programs. So those classes are exploration of engineering tech and fundamentals of architecture and construction. You will find that at most of our middle schools if you look here. So the kids are getting a little taste of what this career pathway would look like in middle school, and then they're going into these high school programs. We have on this document the type of careers that students could get coming out of this program, as well as post-secondary opportunities for them. They may go to Eastern Florida and get their college credit certificate in AutoCAD. Or they may go on to pursue a bachelor's in architecture. There's different paths they could take. And then on this document, you also see the business partnerships that have played a role. Again, for our partners, I am sorry if I've left you off. I'd be happy to update. We can't possibly put them all on there, but these are ones that have played some role, whether it's through internship, whether it's through curriculum development, whether I can pick up the phone and say, hey, we're looking at this piece of equipment. What do you think? Are we getting the right thing? Because we want what we're doing in our classroom to resemble industry. So they vary according to how they are partnering. But I know, like Mr. Susan, you were wanting to have more strategic conversations with some of these folks, like to help continue to move our programs forward. I'd be glad to talk through this with you about how each of these are partnering with us.
Yeah, when I was speaking to that topic, one of the things is like we have a marine mechanics program at O'Galley. If they're going to build a true industry board of people that are going to be communicating to them and everything else, then we should have all of the marinas, all of the boat manufacturing companies on their industry board working with them and doing it with a thing that says, we need you to hire, these 10 kids are interested this year, like more of a specific. And I know we went from like 8 years ago being in the, you know what I mean, in the way off, and getting to where we are now has been a stage, but I think we're at a place where we can really start to hone in on that now with the support that we have with our internships and stuff like that. That's all.
Absolutely.
We're not specifically speaking to that.
Absolutely. And I wanted to show you one other document that's in your folder. On the blue tab on page 4, you have a document that shows direct-to-work credentials. So we know that students in our program have a variety of interests, and that's what's so cool about CTE. Some of them they want to go right to work. So in that architecture and construction pathway, OSHA 10 is something that the kids are earning. That is a direct to work. I've had my safety training. I'm ready to plug and play into the career. Or that student may want to go into post-secondary or, go on to the bachelor's gold standard there. So some of our programs have those direct to work that are easy to plug in right after they graduate high school. Others, like our arts and AV programs, one of the ones I said are a little harder to find the partners. Even with our students' Adobe bundles, which they have fabulous graphic skills, that's not necessarily an inroad immediately into that field. So they would need to go get additional training through a college credit certificate or associate's or bachelor's in order to get that role.
And I think this was just in response to the conversation around when our students finish our programs, what does that get them? Like, does it get them, if they want to go to a trade school, does that get them, a year ahead in connection with that program? Or does it give them a leg up if they are going off to get the bachelor's? Just having that defined. So you'll see in the handouts here that she's, and I know she's got the Eastern Florida one in there, where it's direct conversation of when they finish, here's what the pathway is for that student, so that we can best meet them with where they are. In that document that she went over that was program specific, we tried to make a document by school, but it ended up, it would have been like a 20-page document per school. So that's why we went the route of by program and showing what industry partners, what are the different pathways, what are the feeder plans through the middle school, what does that look like by program? Just because when we were starting to put it together, it wasn't as clean as we wanted it when we did it by school and then all the programs at that particular school.
Right. It is a very complex puzzle. So, Mr. Susan, if you didn't find it on the yellow tab
I got it.
on the first page, these are the current dual enrollment agreements that we have. So students already have a step up into the program should they go the post-secondary route. We have many of them with Eastern Florida, but also with Kaiser. There are a couple of programs that are not offered at Eastern Florida any longer, so we've contracted, we've done MOUs with Indian River State College so that our kids can still have a pathway. And so we're constantly looking for those paths that will give students a step up. And again, on the second page in that same tab, this is an example of one of our MOUs. So if students take a certain path in high school, once they go to college and enroll at Eastern Florida, they're getting credit for the classes, so they don't have to take them again. So we do have these types of agreements available. This is just a snapshot of one of them, but we have agreements like this for all of them, including with Embry-Riddle, with FIT, and again with Kaiser and others I'm not mentioning now.
Can you talk about so I'm seeing this, so it says advanced standing agreements with Eastern Florida State College, so advanced manufacturing tech, our kids out of Bayside would finish with their preliminary pre-apprenticeship program and then go here, and this program here would give them their 4-year certification, that kind of stuff. Is that what you're saying here?
Are you referring to the aviation one?
I'm on advanced standing agreements with Florida State College.
Okay.
Yellow tab, first set of columns, and I'm not, it's not specific to a specific school. I don't,
Right.
whether it's Bayside or whatever else it is, because so you're saying that they go to that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If they, an example one is immediately following that. So what you see here is an example of the aviation one. So the students at O'Galley, they're in the aviation program. This
Right.
is how that translates directly into Eastern Florida. But all of the ones that you see here have a different MOU based on the courses that are at their school. So we have one for machining, we have one for advanced manufacturing and engineering. It just has a different progression of courses depending on which program they're in.
So you have one at Florida Gateway College. Where is that at? And I know that's because water and reclamation is kind of difficult, but it says environmental water and reclamation technology, advanced standing agreements with Florida Gateway College. Where's Gateway College at?
I don't know where the Gateway College is specifically. There's some honesty for you, but they have a program that they actually
Links up
provide
to
some
that.
curriculum.
And it's a very
for that
limited,
program.
I know I didn't
Yes.
ask you that because it's a very limited field that is very limited. So that's awesome that you found it, found a gateway to that. I figured it was somewhere. One of the things I was going to say is, are there any standing areas that we need support with, that we can help with? So one of the areas that I really have a passion about is the teaching academies. And right now, our teaching academies leave our schools and they have to go to like a UCF most of the time. I know Eastern Florida has one little class that they have. What are we doing about that kind of stuff?
So we have an advisory group for the early childhood academy, and we've had conversations as well with the school about how we can give students the same kind of opportunity to participate in the classes and be a parapro for Brevard Public Schools. We've engaged with Eastern Florida trying to figure out the pieces of that. We've gotten to the point where we know that there are evening classes that are available. So let's say we could meet one of our workforce needs, right, with an instructional assistant here. The kids are earning their parapro in the teaching academy. They could go to work full-time and then do their classes in the evening at Eastern Florida. So we know those things exist and there's a potential pathway, we just haven't solidified.
Yeah, and I don't, one of the hardest problems, and Dr. Ernadell and I have talked about this in the past, and others, is that it's not our responsibility to figure out what the colleges are supposed to be doing for our programs. You know what I mean? We've built our programs to align with the industry needs inside the community. Some of our colleges have not. And so one of the things that we have is, and I just want to kind of mention it to you guys, the reason behind this is that years ago, Eastern Florida State did not have any pathway for a kid to get their teaching certificate or degree from Eastern Florida State. So they applied to the state to get that, and UCF blocked it. and they have a veto power on all of programs being allowed to be at the colleges and universities. And the reason for that was because right now our students will go to a program at Eastern Florida, take a bunch of the classes, and then they have to take their final internships and stuff at UCF, which means that the majority of kids that go through our programs at Eastern Florida State end up teachers at UCF, which is like completely got me upset. So I drove to the president's house and I knocked on his door and I said, this is BS. I mean, you can't be blocking our need as a community. And they blew it off. And I asked Eastern Florida State to file again, and they went for one little program to try to get around it. But is there any talk with Eastern Florida State about creating that pathway for us to avoid UCF's block?
I haven't had that conversation, but just to solidify your point, on the first page in the blue tab, you've got our high-demand careers in Brevard County, and notice that teachers are on there in every aspect, from elementary to middle and secondary. So that's a high need in our area. So that's a conversation I'm happy to further engage in with the college, for sure.
Maybe we have that conversation with their board. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's what I mean. I wouldn't, Ms. Rutledge, there's a lot that you do for our kids, and it's difficult for you to chase down everybody else to give the next level. That's where I think we could help out, is to go after their board and say, hey, like, we need a teaching pathway. And we're doing great with the IAs, but there needs to be a place where our parents can say, yes, my daughter is going to get their teaching degree. You know what I mean? And that's what I was talking about. So I don't mean for you to do it. I'm just saying maybe we can go do it. So, okay.
So the
guys got
education
something you
and
wanna say?
training career pathways,
No.
if you go to the green tab, so at the back, you go to the green tab, page number 5. So just to illustrate what Mr. Susan was saying and what Mrs. Rutledge was saying is, on the left-hand column, you see our programs. On the right-hand column, UCF has most of the teaching certification, most of the teaching degrees. EFSC has early childhood and
Right.
teaching assistant, but no elementary or secondary teaching certification program.
Have we ever had a meeting with Eastern
No.
Florida to
No.
just sit down and say, these are the programs we have, we would really like you guys to have a follow-up program to it? Do we ever sit down with them? I know
Yeah,
Frank
so
Margiani and everybody
We've
else.
had many of those conversations, and in fact, one of them was education related. My content specialist and I sat down and talked through, how can we get kids to come to your program? We've got to design that path. But they have their own
Sure.
priorities and
And I get
that
it.
they're working towards as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for me?
Anybody? No. Again, very informative. Thank you so much. The questions had come up and you guys, immediately put something together. So we appreciate that, and your willingness to take questions and directions. So, nothing else?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Since you're trying to figure out which job I need my son.
You're gonna get him a job, huh?
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. You do. Very well. Dr. Rendell, did you want to follow up with what's next?
Yeah, so the next presentation is going to be on financial literacy. At the offsite in January, the board had some discussion about what are we doing with financial literacy. We hear a lot about students graduating high school and not knowing how to balance a checkbook, not knowing what a credit card is, what the advantages and disadvantages of a credit card, and that kind of thing. And in some ways, that never was our job to teach kids financial literacy. Several years ago, the state did recognize that, students should graduate high school with some financial literacy, and they required some standards to be taught in economics class. And so they're in the economics class currently, but still students were graduating without that basic financial literacy knowledge. And so the state legislature said, now you have to have a financial literacy course. So Mrs. Harris is going to take us through that course. Keep in mind, though, that we have numerous partnerships with different organizations that also come to our schools as guest lecturers and visitors that offer financial literacy. Community Credit Union does, JA does, comes in and does financial literacy. There are several other investment firms that offer to come in. So, we actually have lots of different layers that we already have in place attempting to teach students financial literacy skills. But, we're going to go over the course that is required that we'll be implementing next year. We also know that there are some life skills that we would love for our students to have before they graduate, and maybe we'll talk about a different course for that later, or maybe we'll have the automotive technology shops open for basic engine repair and maintenance, life skills. But anyway, Ms. Harris.
Thank you. So I think based on the conversation at the offsite, I think that this course will meet a lot of your needs. For most of our students, this will be an 11th grade course, but we're going to just kind of dive into the overview. What I've passed out, you also had the link into this, and this is all of the benchmarks required by the state for this course. So you will see that we have the traditional course as well as the honors. And so some of the questions you may have around, well, who determines the honors course? One of the things that we're advising schools in this piece is to look at the student's literacy level. And so based on their literacy level, they may take the honors. But when we dive in, you will see the changes. Those standards that are highlighted would be the ones that are added to the honors course. This is an opportunity for when you look at what makes up the courses, it would be something that even a student that were not yet proficient in literacy could participate in the honors course when we're talking about financial literacy. But there are 7 basically pillars or areas of focus within this course. And just remembering the conversation at that offsite, I think that a lot of what was addressed in that conversation you will find in this course. The first one being just about how our values vary from person to person, and that weighs into how we spend our money and how we prioritize purchases. So students will have, you'll see in the benchmarks, there are the clarifications, but examples of possible student tasks that they will have to participate in the coursework to get them thinking around that. Number 2, we've talked a lot with our CTE, kind of as a perfect alignment. We will have conversations with students about, okay, this is the career pathway you think. What does the salary look like? What is the investment of training for that selected? And this is where students will look at, okay, is the investment, if it's a college experience, is the investment of that going to be worth it to me based on what the salary range is for that career? Or looking at, do I just want to go to a vocational training program that could potentially be less expensive with an equally or greater potential for salary in the end? So the tasks that students will participate in this course really will have to base on some critical thinking. You will see critical thinking embedded into this course of making financial decisions around career paths and what will take me to get to that career path, and is that worth it? And within the benchmarks, you will see what's worth it is going to vary from person to person, because we all have different values that we will go into when we're weighing our decision making. You will also see number 3. I think this is a great opportunity for high school students, because so often they don't understand the costs of things and what that looks like when we're talking about goods and services, and they will have to make decisions regarding budgeting and what can I afford, what can't I afford, if I know I have to pay for housing and fuel, what other choices might I make if I only have X dollars and the expenses are greater? Do I need to look at some other pathways? When we go into this next number 4, this is where we really talk about saving. And here is where I think we will be leveling up our students through this course, because so often, if I don't know better, I am going to just put money into savings. And what type of savings am I doing? And a lot of our students don't have an understanding prior to this unless it's come, at home about compound interest. And that is the aha for students. You see comparisons, and some of the student experience will be if Tara puts in, $200 a month into this account, and Dr. Rendell puts $200 into this account that's going to have compound interest, look in 25, 30 years, the difference in that money. And I feel like for students, they know they're supposed to save a percentage of their income, but I think we want them to make wise decisions. And so this course will level the playing field that everyone is informed and then can make those decisions. Number 5, I think it couldn't be better as students are going off and graduating that they make decisions about credit and what that looks like and what the long-term impacts, the advantages and disadvantages, because we know that, some companies are going to come across our students and they're going to make decisions of, okay, that TV, you can have that for $10 a week. What does that really look like? And when we look at interest and what credit means and the impact of if you take out credit and you don't make your payment. And so you will see within the standards, students having those experiences of what does it mean if you miss a payment? And based on an agreement you may have signed, what is the penalty for that? And then our last 2 areas of focus kind of analyze that, but just really speaking to planning for the future. And so we want students to know, as much as we want to live in the here and now, we must plan for the future and what are the risks that can come our way. And that's where they will talk about different types of insurance. And that's where students can make decisions of, how much does insurance cost? How much, if I were to lose my income, what would be the impact on that, and really be able to make some decisions. And again, it's things that in some of our households, these are discussions, but we'll ensure through this course that students really will exit our, stage at graduation with some tools to hopefully be better savvy with their money. So that I know is a very high level overview, but when you go into the standards, you will see through the activity. So there's clarifications from the state with each benchmark, but then example tasks. And like Dr. Rendell said, there's a lot of different ways we can teach this for students, but this is what we will be teaching. And I feel like it does really hit not just the economics and how to set up a budget, but students are going to have to set up a budget using a variety of tools, not just a spreadsheet, but there's apps available. There are a lot of tools for budgeting, and I think that it will educate our students on how their choices all have consequences, which we know that, but this will be some real life experiences of you're going to have to perform this task and how did that work for you prior to them doing it with their first paycheck.
Mr. Trent is demonstrating his knowledge. He's doing math problems over here.
I love
He's
it.
answering the
I
questions
love it.
and the examples.
Yes. I mentioned this earlier, but you will see that, we talked about the skills students need, but within this course, you will find they have to collaborate with others. They have to really think critically. And then that workforce literacy, what does that mean? And if I want this lifestyle and this income, is the pathway I'm selecting going to result in that? And then that's where they make personal decisions. You will see in here where they say, okay, what are the sacrifices of this career field? Is it a lot of hours or is it personal reward? And people can make decisions based on, some make it on income, but some make it on, this is, my passion, I'm very passionate about this work, or this can give me the flexibility. Something that just let me know we're in 2025 is you'll see the importance of gigs, a side gig, and why that's important. I'm shocked that there wasn't something about being an influencer, because you talk to a lot of students and they want to be an influencer. So I think this course will prepare our students to make just sound decisions and reduce the missteps that maybe people without the course may have made. Any questions?
Yes.
So to your last point, we actually had a whole session, the FSBA leadership last year at our conferences about, and they talked about the gig economy, that is the way, that is where the future is going. It's not just a side gig anymore, like your career is in this gig economy where you're hiring yourself out as your own contractor to do any number of career fields. Marketing, social media, accounting even, the people are really more and more wanting to run their own businesses, as a solo employee, a different kind of entrepreneurship than what we've seen before.
Yes.
So my question, I brought it up to you before personally as a parent of a 10th grader, because that is the graduating class. And I know we have a plan moving forward for where we're going to fit this into their many graduation requirements. My concern with this year's 10th graders is, as a 10th grade parent, I haven't really heard about this yet, except for as a school board member. I want to make sure that those kids because these one semester courses are so difficult because you have to find that partner that's going to go on the other side of
Right.
the year. And so since they're 10th graders, they probably already have taken the careers class either in their freshman year or they took it online because they wanted to have more electives. And that was the case I know in our family. So how are we going to squeeze that in or communicate so that, because they've got 2 years to get this done, that first graduating class where it's going to be a requirement.
So I think your conversation elicited when Miss Vega, and I apologize that she's not here doing this, she's at Teacher Clarity today, but we talked about that. And so last week she met with her team of communications, the first thing. We need to make sure that we're getting this out because it is a new course, and really work with counselors so that when they're working on student scheduling, okay, is it backing up to that economics or where is it backing up? Because a lot of our students do take courses in the summer so that because they've kind of planned out how they're going to utilize their time, and we don't want a student to have a missed opportunity or sitting, January of their senior year,
Right, and they
trying
haven't
to
taken
find a
it
place for this. So she and I met last week of what we're working with the CCs last week. We're informed, and then also with our school counselors to ensure that this is on their radar. No different than we track students, like have they, met their industry cert yet? This will be another tracking until it becomes routine and that people are expecting it.
Right.
But our first step last week was working on communication, making
Yeah.
sure that all of our stakeholders are aware of this course.
Right. And for a lot of students, it probably won't be as much of a problem because some kids get to their senior year and they're taking multiple PE classes just to fill out their schedule. But for some who
could be.
have, lots of music classes or they're doing CTE every year, plus they want to get foreign language, it's a lot to get it all crammed into those
Correct.
4 years. So I just want to make sure that we're communicating that clearly. Is on a related note, we have zero hour at some schools because of programming and trying to fit things in, especially in programs like IB. But do we have the opportunity at our high schools to do 0 hour virtual labs? So for example, because I'm just worried about, for students who may not have as easy access to Brevard Virtual from home, maybe lack of technology or whatever, do we have opportunity either before or after school ever for students to take, for example, a course like this? They come in early and they have access to the labs. And I know we have on high school campuses, we have those virtual labs where they are taking courses that they need to get, and there's an IA or someone
For course similar. recovery.
Right,
things.
credit recovery. Do we have something like that where they could do that before or after school?
Let me look into that more for this course because
Okay.
this one specifically, we do have a lot of opportunities for other courses during the 0 hours, but we have not discussed this that could help pick up for some
Right.
of those students.
And again, I think this will mainly be for like this first group of students. I think once we get into the groove and everybody's realizing, oh, I take finance on the opposite side of economics and I take career on the opposite of government, or however you guys have organized it, it'll be clearer going forward. But these kids are the ones that I'm most concerned about. And
But
not
to
just because
answer-
I have a 10th grade
Sure, but to
kid
answer your
myself.
question about zero period being an opportunity for the FLVS lab to be open, absolutely. I don't know if any of our schools do that, but they can.
Okay.
You could compensate a teacher with a 7 out of 7 supplement to run the zero period. You could stagger the hours of your computer lab person.
Right.
Being that
Virtually
that's-
or in person is what you're.
Correct,
okay.
right. So yeah, there's opportunities for zero period either way.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about this. This falls in line with my life skills, ask that I wanted the board to really look at. I've been going through the curriculum. The curriculum is very content-rich. The videos are applicable. Students will be engaged. It's very entertaining. I'm sure, board, you've received some messages, much like I have received. I assume whenever I receive an email, you're receiving the same one. Maybe that's not a good assumption, but there's been some concern in the community over the curriculum that was chosen, and I'm glad that this process was followed with fidelity. I mean, we had the curriculum crew there that went through everything. They voted on this. It is very, very good. So I'm excited for our students. I think we're going to see some positive outcomes if we can teach our kids to not get into debt and make smarter financial choices. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm excited to see what it does for our students moving forward. So thank you.
Yes.
Matt, anything? All right, so this is awesome. Thank you. You're kind of in my wheelhouse now.
Okay.
I taught this course for maybe 6-7 years up north. I was in finance before I was a teacher, so this is great. Things I like. The later in school, the better. 11th, 12th grade is good. Many times when I taught this course, kids are like, "Hey, didn't we have something like this in economics?" But it was like freshman year, and nobody cares about paying a credit card or having a job or anything else at that point, and they forgot some of it, or it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This was a year course that I taught. I understand it's a semester course, but that's fine, but I could push for an entire year course of this. I wouldn't be in favor of taking this in a FLVS setting or on a computer or class. I think instruction needs to be there. That conversation that whoever's teaching is important of their real life involvement in finance. I think that's this. If we do this right, this will be the best course that we teach in Brevard. I mean, it really takes to serve every student with excellence, because every student is going to be making and saving and spending money for the rest of their lives. So this is so important. I can't tell you how many students I had come back to me and said, "This is the best thing I've learned while I was in school." Was how to take care of money and finances. So thank you. Some of the things that I had put down is keep it as basic as possible. I was a little concerned and alarmed when I saw regular honors, because it is basic information, and it's just us getting it to that student. And this is where every student's, where they come from, has a place at the table. It's the same information. Money and saving and bills. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor or the landscaper or anything else. We all have the same issues around the kitchen table. So I'm hoping we can keep it very, very basic, where we can have everybody at this in a school feel comfortable in that class. Those teachers that are going to be teaching us, take this. This is not a blow-off class. This is the most important course in that school, and I'm going to take that to heart here on this board, and when we visit schools and when we pick those instructors. It's so very important. So I appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, good. It really is. I'm excited that we have this in place, and anything I can do in the future, please
Thank you.
call on us.
Thank you. Okay, great.
So, Mr. Chair, we've been at this for a good hour. I didn't know if you want to take a short break before we set up the next one.
Yeah, I think a 5-minute recess would be great.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. Dr. Rendell, would you want to introduce our next topic and speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the offsite back in January, there was a lot of discussion about the alternative learning centers, their effectiveness, their makeup, the operation, whether we might be willing to maybe make a change and do something different with the alternative learning center placement, expulsion process, removal from school, and that kind of thing. So we asked Mr. Raymer to work up a presentation for us today to take a look at what we're currently doing at the ALCs and what the possibilities would be for the future. So he has Misty Bland with him, Director of Alternative Sites. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Raymer at this point.
All right, so good afternoon. Feel like it's on. And thank you for allowing us the opportunity today to talk about our alternative learning centers. Today I have with me, as Dr. Rendell said, Miss Misty Bland, who is our Director of Alternative Sites. And at the offsite board workshop, there was some heavy discussion regarding current practice at our alternative learning centers and possible opportunities or options moving forward to either enhance those practices or make a change in practice. So based on that discussion, today we're going to provide you with an overview of our current practice and options moving forward. So currently, we have 2 of our alternative learning sites, the North Central Alternative Learning Center in Merritt Island and the South Alternative Learning Center in Melbourne, which operate on what we'd call a traditional elementary timeframe of 8 to 2:30 and then the Friday early release. So secondary students currently at our alternative learning sites are doing a hybrid version, which means that they are on site 2 days a week, and then possibly on Friday, and then off-site 2 days a week, and possibly on Friday, like a 2-3 hybrid, just depending on academic performance. Our elementary students are a full 5 days a week at the alternative learning centers. So our discipline plan outlines the procedures that we must follow in order to place a student at the alternative learning center and or place them up for expulsion. So Ms. Bland is going to be walking you through some options. So we prepared 2 options for moving forward with our alternative learning centers, best practices, and wanted to get your feedback on how you believe would be in the best interest of Brevard Public Schools to continue with our alternative learning centers or how we handle discipline infractions of the serious nature. So Ms. Bland, it is all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I think it's important to start with, what disciplinary programs are implemented in other Florida counties. I had the privilege to sit with representatives from about 9 counties and discuss currently what strategies they have in place for students with disciplinary issues. So those 4 programs that you see were key programs that they use, that they implement currently, that they've had success with. So the Alternative Learning Center, all the counties that I spoke with currently have that. They have a sheriff's program, which they use for students that are delinquent and require more of a stringent behavior type program instead of just the regular ALC. They have home instruction, which is an online curriculum for students that commit an expellable offense or have a behavior that doesn't allow them to be on campus with other students. So they still provide that student an education, it just may not be on a campus.
Can you speak to what that would be exactly? Sorry, a behavior that wouldn't allow them to be on campus with other students.
So if a student commits an expellable offense, and it could be a multitude of things, maybe it's fighting, or they were already given a chance and now they've committed something else. Instead of not allowing them to have an education, they do allow that student to complete an online program, and the majority of the counties that I spoke with are currently using that. And last is an out-of-school suspension center. So all the counties that I spoke with, they do have an out-of-school suspension center, and what that is, if a student is suspended from 3 days, 3 to 5 days, 10 days, whatever amount of days it is, instead of going home, they go to this center and they complete their expulsion days there. So they don't do it at home. They're suspended to a center.
So you actually mean finish their suspension, not expulsion, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. So if a student is suspended for anything, even just classroom disruption, they go there.
Right.
Okay, so the two different options that potential options moving forward, I'd like to present to you today is one is the Alternative Learning Center, and two is the diversion program. So option one, the Alternative Learning Center, what is that? I believe everyone on the board knows what that is, and it is, I have to put my glasses on because I'm blind, I'm sorry. So it's designed to provide a supported and structured environment for students who have committed a serious offense. So those are the students that are not allowed to be on our regular campus. So what would be their requirement? So option one would be students going back to school 5 days a week. And that is with the strengthened stipulation conduct agreement. And just to review that, that was just approved by the board. Students receive 2 referrals, processed as level 1 or 2. The first offense, that student's going to be suspended for 5 days. The second offense, they're automatically going to be suspended 10 days pending and placed up for a full expulsion. Any student that receives 1 referral that's level 3, 4, or 5, that student is automatically going to be placed up for 10 days pending, placed up for a full expulsion. So before I go over this slide, I wanted to just say something that I didn't say before. I really appreciate the board's support on strengthening the stipulation conduct agreement, because that allowed the ALC to really enhance the learning environment there with that support. And not only that, to be able to provide these things in a much more efficient manner. So a supportive environment to be, what they do is with student parents, foster a supportive and collaborative learning environment. The therapeutic support is there, which they have sessions to support student emotional and mental health by counseling and therapy sessions, which that is daily. They do it by individual or group counseling, and that is happening daily. Behavior interventions to help manage and improve behavioral issues. The goal is to help students be able to go back to a school environment, because they are going back, and to help them be able to regulate their emotions and their behavior to be able to go back there. So currently, what is the Alternative Learning Center data? So if you look at the North Central Area Learning Center, this was as of February 13th. Student enrollment was 118, and you can see the breakdown by elementary, middle, and high school. Going back to 5 days a week, the elementary class size, which we're currently already 5 days there, would be 13, and secondary class size would be 18, 5 days a week, if we were to go back for class size. South Area Learning Center, the student enrollment is 91, and class size is 9 in elementary, and secondary would be 14, going back 5 days a week.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't see it in the slides, but do you have any data on how many of these students have already been placed at the ALC since maybe even this year, or since they've been a BPS student? How many of these are repeat offenders that have gone back to the ALC?
So I currently do not have the data on that right now, but I do have the data of 23, 24. When I looked at before, it was about 143, approximately 143 repeaters. But that was over 4 years, because I was looking from 9th grade on.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I would love to see what it is for the current enrollment, the population that's there now.
So I will talk briefly, and I feel like my mic's on, but it's not really working. We will see. But based on board discussion a few months ago and at the end of last year, we are moving towards a one-time, I'll say, allotted opportunity at our Alternative Learning Center in those grade bands that we discussed whenever we did the conduct stipulation agreement. So that will significantly reduce any repeat offenders, because you would be permitted to attend the Alternative Learning Center one time in K through 6 and then one time in 7 through 12. So the question on the repeaters would be drastically reduced, if non-existent, based on that, because you could only go one time in those grade bands. So the second time, we wouldn't provide it as an opportunity.
Question I have, you said February 13th was this data. So in your experience, February, where would you see that, where would you estimate that enrollment at the North ALC, say in April?
Well, the majority of the students after September 20th, there is no more earn return, so these students stay till May 28th. That number will increase. But when I look at the data from last year and having the drug diversion program, the numbers have been lower and have been much more manageable to go back 5 days a week.
So it wouldn't be uncommon, though, that secondary class size to be over 20? That's
Yes,
only
sir.
two.
I estimate it would be probably 25 when I go back and
25.
look, which is reasonable.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's a reasonable estimate, but it's not reasonable. We know that, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
But that is my estimate.
Okay, good, thank you.
So option 2 is the diversion program. And what is a diversion program? It's an opportunity for students who commit certain expellable offenses to not be removed from campus. So what are the requirements of the diversion program? This would be something like currently what we do with the drug diversion. So it would be aligned to that with a few other options. So just like the drug diversion, students would be suspended out of school and they'd be placed on a stipulation conduct agreement. There would be weekly counseling and students would be prohibited from participating in anything that has to do with school, sports, clubs, sponsors, events, while under the school-based diversion stipulation conduct agreement. And students will be prohibited to be on another campus and they will be required to keep good standing in all classes. So what are some other possible options to enhance? Now, obviously, this is going to have to do with what people have in school. Would they be able to do this? Because it'll be up to a school basis whether they wanted to supervise kids to escort them to the bathroom, lunch, before and after school. That's a school-based decision. We currently have schools right now that do that with drug diversion, but that it would be a school-based decision. We could also, would be a district decision, is have students participate in a behavioral modification program, which that would be a program that we could put together to do on Saturdays. So just like students in the drug diversion, they have counseling on their own time after school that they have to go to. This would be the same concept, except it would be on a Saturday. So who is eligible? So students that would be eligible for diversion if one time K through 6 and one time in grades 7 through 12, which is currently aligned with what we're doing right now, which we're starting next year. Level 4 offenses will be evaluated and will be permitted to attend the diversion program or may be recommended for expulsion, and the level 4 and 5 handouts were given to you. So in all level 5 offenses will be automatically recommended for expulsion. And students recommended for expulsion may be eligible for the online curricular program, but there is a potential loss in FTE. It just depends on what date the student is placed up for expulsion. So what staff would be needed if we did this diversion program or online curricular program? So staff need, for the diversion would be 2 social workers, which is currently like what we do at the drug diversion. They have a counselor. We would have 2 social workers to complete weekly counseling and support, to collaborate with educators, and for behavior interventions. In addition to that, for the online curricular program, we would need 4 secondary teachers and 1 elementary teacher, because this would be needed to provide a certified teacher to monitor the online program and provide guidance and support, because you do need that for a student to get credit. They have to be a certified teacher. So the analysis of the Alternative Learning Center. Currently, we have 38 staff members that are assigned to the Alternative Learning Center, and those positions are listed below. We currently have 7 buses that are utilized to transport students. We have 3 at South and 4 at North. And if we were to do the program with the online curricular program, we would be able to allocate 31 staff members back into schools, and we would need 7 staff members for that program.
So I'm gonna switch mics because I don't think that one's working. So based on the board workshop, the offsite, we wanted to talk about 2 potential options moving forward. So option 1, as discussed, just as a quick overview, would be to look at the alternative learning centers at 5 days a week for all students. Now, this would mean in August, the class size at the secondary level may be also 8 to 10. And as you get closer to the semester, that number will continue to grow until that stipulation agreement has elapsed, and some of those students are back in their traditional school. So could get up into the high teens, mid-20s, depending on infractions. But they would be going back 5 days a week, K through 12. And they would have the opportunity to be in that environment that we discussed with the strengthened conduct stipulation agreement, which does allow us the opportunity to impose stronger disciplinary matters whenever those infractions occur and work through that stipulation agreement. So that option would keep the North Central Alternative Learning Center open and operating as it is currently, except for 5 days a week, with that strengthened stipulation agreement and the strengthened language of you can only attend one time K through 6 and 7 through 12. Option 2 is very similar to our current drug diversion program, except we would now expand that to more level 4 offenses. So we would have to look at all level 4 offenses, and as we said, by case, or if we wanted to, we could dictate these level 4 offenses qualify, these level 4 offenses do not. And if those level 4 offenses qualified and placement at ALC, which would have been the option, is now not existent, that would be placement in the diversion program where they would have the out-of-school suspension, the weekly counseling, the exclusionary matters from basically co-curricular, extracurricular opportunities, and they would have to complete the program, as it's stated. Students that are in level 4 infractions that did not qualify or level 5 would have expulsion, would be the option at that point, with placement online curricular opportunity, which would be similar or just like the Ingenuity option that we currently give to students at the ALC. So that would be the options that we would look at. Obviously, there could be other options out there, but based on the board workshop, we felt that these were the 2 most viable options as we're looking to the 25-26 school year and beyond. So if there's other options, we could pursue those, but we thought that these 2 were the most viable, as one aligned with what we currently do, except enhanced stipulation agreement, enhanced language for how many times you can attend, and 5 days a week, traditional school, as you would say, but at the alternative learning centers. And then option 2 aligns with what we just put in place 2 years ago with the drug diversion program. So at this time, as we work through any questions, essentially those 7 buses, if we were to look at this option, those 7 buses would then be able to serve other schools because they wouldn't be serving the alternative learning center. We all know transportation and the assistance that could potentially provide. And those 31 students would essentially go into schools that have an opening for 31 staff members, sorry. 31 staff members would go back into the schools for open positions, thus we wouldn't have to fill those open positions, so that could be a potential cost savings there of filling current open positions with current staff. And there's a breakdown on the left of what those staff look like in regards to how we would have to look at the placement of the staff, whether it's support or instructional.
Ready for questions?
We are.
Board?
Have you figured out the exact amount of money that we'll save because of that? So you have 16 teachers at an average of X, principal, all that stuff you're talking.
Yeah, so instructional units we average about $75,000. That includes salary and fringe. For our support units, it's somewhere $37,000 to $50,000 between salary and fringe, depending on the level. Both of our ALCs operate currently at about a $1.2 million budget. We would not recoup the entire 1.2, as our North Central would still have Gardendale. So electricity, water, AC, et cetera, operational side would still exist there. In our South Area Alternative Learning Center, we would look at potentially placement of district staff that maybe are currently in schools, or maybe we need a place for them closer to some of the buildings that they work out of. So the operational side of there would still exist with regards to electricity, AC, water, et cetera. But we do have a breakdown from finance of the 3-year average that we're looking at, and it's about $1.2 million when you take everything into consideration for both ALCs, so about 2.4, and you would put back in, you know, a portion of that for operational costs for both of those buildings that would stay open. So.
Thank you. Thank you for those numbers. Okay, I'll go ahead and lead the conversation. So I want to say this to our teachers that are at the ALC, because I know that they're going to be listening and watching this very closely. This decision has absolutely nothing to do with them, as far as them not performing well or them not doing what we've asked them to do. Quite frankly, I've had a teacher reach out to me, and my heart broke for her, because I'm like, what we've asked you to do is an impossible task. I mean, honestly, having students in those schools, which are some of our most challenged students, they really are, they need additional help around them, and we're only seeing them 2 to 3 days a week for majority of them, because most of them fall in the secondary world. And then we're asking a teacher to look at a class range of 7th through 12th grade, which the curriculum is drastically different in all of those. And we're asking our bus drivers to make sure that we have students on buses that are from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like, there's a lot of things there that are just not right. They are not right. Those decisions were made before I was here. I can't speak to why they were made or what the thought process was there. I will tell you right now, my option where I would be leaning towards is option 2, which is the diversion program. And the other part that I want our principals to understand this part of it, because I think there's been some misconception in the community of, oh my gosh, now what? Expelled means expelled, right? And so we had this conversation one day of, are they expelled or are they expelled? And what does that look like? And so we've got to get back to it meaning what it is, right? So they're either on the diversion program or they're expelled. And expelled means you're not in the school system anymore. The diversion program means you're still given a second chance. So for me, like, this is a crystal clear decision. It makes the most sense. I think we've had huge successes with the drug diversion program. I believe that we would have similar successes with this diversion program as well. And I think we would also have the ability to take this staff that's there and go ahead and put them back into a school environment that really is what they set out to do with their career anyways, a lot of times. So it's not, you know, they're all great people there. They're working hard. They're doing what they can. But we've given them an impossible task. And so for that, I think that, you know, the board, the district owes an apology to that staff that's there. That was never the intent, but I think that's unfortunately what took place. So my overall, where I land is option 2, 100%, which is the diversion program.
All right. Ms. Campbell?
I don't know that I can tell you today. To be completely transparent, part of me was a little disappointed, not because you haven't done great work. Hear me right. I guess I was imagining maybe, and I was excited when you talked about the other districts, what they're doing, and I've heard. I think I shared with you the Charlotte County. They're doing like this academy thing over there for students, and I was looking for something outside the box, realizing though that our diversion program is outside the box for us for sure, and it's. I don't know. And maybe what I was looking for is in here somewhere. I wanted to make sure, because when I think about sorry, I'm processing out loud. This is all going to be out of order,
That's okay.
right? That's the way I process. So what we would be missing by losing the ALCs is that all the social worker, the therapy and all that. And I know if they're in a diversion program at their school, for those of us who are able to access that, it looks like they'll be having, that's part of the stipulation agreement is they'll have to do the, trying to find the wording that you put in here. Participation in behavioral modification program. And their weekly counseling. So that will be part of it. It just won't be as much as what they're getting now on the ALC, at the ALC level. And I know for some students that really is beneficial. And so we lose that. But I can't can't lie, you know, I have seen now for 6 years the regular reports of the behaviors that happen on the buses that are problematic for the students themselves, for other students on the bus, for the IAs who ride with them, for the bus drivers, for the administrators who sometimes have to leave campus and ride the bus because there's not an IA. I mean, I'm fully aware of the problems that have happened with transportation, and I love the idea of being able to bring those back in, not just for a cost saving. This can't be about cost savings. It has to be what's right for students. I don't know. I was looking maybe more of an online option for, but you know what I'm hearing you say. One question I had, as I'm processing this out loud, when you talk about deciding the level 4s, which ones will be allowed to do this and which one won't? Are you talking about going through the list and saying, for example, sexual assault won't be, and I'm just using examples, but this will be, or will it be a case-by-case basis, grade level type of thing?
So we went through level 4 and tried to decipher which ones would most likely fall in either the diversionary program or an expulsionary side. You bring up one that we would strongly believe would fall on the expulsionary side, like a sexual assault.
Okay.
Something of that nature. So we have looked through, highlighted, and started to separate level 4 into what we would look at as this is a case-by-case basis because the infraction is diversion. But for example, fighting may actually need to be looked at as an option for diversion, but a case-by-case basis that might actually qualify for expulsion.
Okay.
So we would most likely slide some of these level 4 to level 5-ish, where they
4.5.
would be expulsionary, and then level 4 would become case-by-case basis. Campus disruption major is another option. Some of those we would really have to look at to say, okay, you know what, we feel comfortable you could be in the diversion program with supports and this won't happen again, or that was too egregious of a campus disruption.
Right.
We have to go this direction.
Well, and
or we
there's some
should go
things
this
that
direction.
we're limited by statute because I'm trying to think of the one that comes to mind is if you pull a fire alarm, I think by statute it's mandatory 365 days expulsion, correct? So I guess my hope was that we would come up with options too that allow students, because we're going to be expelling more students. Expelling more students. And that's a choice that potentially, at least to start off, we could potentially be. When we give options, then we're affecting not only that student's opportunity to graduate, but our own graduation rate. So if we give students options to continue, if they have the motivation to do it, some kind of online learning, we have the opportunity for that student to not get behind, to move forward with their own education and graduate hopefully on time or closer to on time. It helps our grad rates, it helps school grades, it does all those things. If they're getting behind, they're more likely to drop out, they're more likely to cause problems, they're more likely to have to go right back. And so what I'm hearing is this level 4.5 or 5, when they're doing that and they're able to take these online courses, then they're not truly expelled, because they're taking online courses, which is good for, if they're, again, a motivated student, and if they don't, then they're fully expelled. So we're still having the language problem that Ms. Wright is having has the problems with. There's still a intermediary, and maybe it's just, we got to use a different vocabulary for that. I like the option of students being able to have that online option because they're not, if they're a danger, like all these level 5s and some of the level 4s, nobody wants them back on campus, at least for a time, right? But the opportunity that they would have to continue their education, unless they just don't do it. If they go home and they've been given an opportunity, they don't do it, then that's on them. So that's kind of where I am, and I don't know, I didn't really come to a conclusion on that, but I don't know if I can give you, and the other thing that would make me not want to say fall one side or the other is, I'd love to hear what the overall staff feedback was from our schools and administrators. I know I've heard from our drug diversion program, but some of these are a little, and so I know I have every confidence that they can do it. Would this be would this be enough support for them? These two floating social workers, are they going to be going from school to school to school? Or are they meeting virtually with these students? How does that, you see that working?
Yeah, they would be going schools, so they'd have assigned schools. So we do need to keep in mind that some of our schools have a much higher level of students at the Alternative Learning Center than others.
Right.
So if you are a school that has 2 students, currently at the Alternative Learning Center, we would most likely look at that as the school-based social worker handling those students that maybe would now be in diversion program. The schools that have, and we tiered it, so we were looking at, up in the, numbers of, we'll say 7 and above, like you would then have a social worker that would come down to the school and assist your school-based social worker with some of these services or take them over. So we would have to look at, what that number would be. We were talking about 10, then we kind of lowered it to more like 8 or 7. And one social worker would work schools that are Pineda South, and one would really work the schools that are Pineda North that needed the support. But you do have schools with the one-off. They have currently 1 student at the Alternative Learning Center. The school-based social worker would be able to provide that weekly, daily support to that student. The schools that have 15, would need to have some extra supports in place. And Ms. Campbell, to your point on the, outside of the box and looking at the online Ingenuity, online curricular option does give us some of that option with the goal of keeping students engaged in education, keeping students engaged in content and curriculum, on pace to graduate with their cohort, or on pace to be promoted if they're in a middle school, so that they are, once again, with their age-like peers. So it does provide that opportunity for students. The terminology that we chose to use aligns with where we are currently, but in reality, the terminology could be diversionary, online curricular program, expulsion, and that's how you would separate them. Obviously, if they do not do what they're supposed to do in the online curricular opportunity or what they're supposed to do in the diversion program, then we would have to decide when they go from one bucket to the next, and then obviously expulsion, unfortunately, would be the last option that we look at. But there are some that would immediately go to expulsion, for example, weapons.
Right.
We talked about that. Those would be ones where diversion program is not offered, online Ingenuity isn't offered unless you would direct us to look at that differently, and that student would be placed up for expulsion following the statutes and everything in place.
Okay.
And we discussed looking at it, that students would have to complete about 6% in each course to be completing what they would need to do weekly. So the students, if they were placed in this program and they aren't doing 6% in each course, then they would be placed up for a full expulsion, a full expulsion.
Sure.
Expelled. That
So
conversation.
we would be
I-
able
I-
to hopefully streamline the terminology, but
Yeah.
give that opportunity for the student to continue to, be the best student they could be in that situation. But most likely, the student, if we expel them, they are going to return to one of our schools when the expulsion is up. So we want them to return in the best academic position possible. So the online curricular opportunity would provide them with the best academic, status possible, based on where they would be, right, with the infraction. If we felt like, well, that infraction, you need to be on online Ingenuity. They would still be able to come back on pace for graduation, on pace for promotion, with credits, with a GPA, all of those things that would continue to progress them towards the end goal and not halt that end goal. And then when they get back on campus, try to restart that end goal.
Gotcha.
All right. My turn. You
Yeah,
good?
Yeah. Can I say one?
Yes,
more
you
thing?
can.
All right. I understand the hesitancy here, and I understand that this could potentially draw, our expulsion numbers are going to be a little unattractive for a while. The ultimate goal here is for students to understand it, and students are pretty great. I mean, I've raised some kids, they know clear expectations. They know when they go into certain teachers' classrooms what they can do and what they can't do and what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. And I think if we set a really hard line here of like, hey, we want to make sure that the learning environment is the most productive it possibly can be. There are certain things that are non-negotiables. You cannot do them in our district. If you do them, you will not be here in a seat in our classrooms. It's the good old Georgia speeding ticket analogy. I go back to that one over and over again. Like, where you don't speed is Georgia, because Georgia set the precedence that if you speed in Georgia, you're getting pulled over and you're getting a big old ticket. I kind of want that same precedent set here for Brevard County Public Schools, that they understand if you do these offenses, we will not tolerate it. And I know, I don't mind the idea of the online portion of it, but there has to be some parameters around there. So I'm not objecting to that, what you're suggesting there, Ms. Campbell, but there does need to be a pacing and maybe a GPA, something that shows that they are really trying, that they're not just looking at it like, whatever.
And we have that in place. It's the 6% per week that they're making progress, and obviously all the other aspects would stay in place, right? They're not participating, they're not on any campus, they're not doing those things. We'd be able to monitor them to maintain that they're pacing and that they are moving forward as appropriate.
And my other ask would be of that, this wouldn't be something where we're looking at a half a semester, depending on when it falls, because that's something I've heard from multiple schools. Like an offense it happened in November, and because there's only until December, so they were only out for a couple weeks, and then they came back in January when they were expelled, because they were sent to the alternative learning site, right? So that happens, that absolutely does happen. And so my ask would be, whatever this looks like, it looks like for the entire rest of that school year for that student.
So what you're referencing is the old earned return, where students had to be at the ALC for a minimum of 5 weeks, which means if the infraction did happen in, we'll say, early November, late October, they could potentially be back in January. So we have modified that. We did that last year where we have dates certain, and if it happens before the date, you can return it this semester. If it happens after the date, you don't return until the following semester. So for example, if they were to do an infraction October 1st, they would not return to the home school until August of the following school year.
Okay.
So we did strengthen that also. So we've really enhanced a lot of aspects of this process, from earned return to the stipulation agreement to the number of times that you can attend the ALC, with the goal of modifying behavior and having students in classrooms ready to learn, acting in a positive and proactive manner, knowing that it won't always happen, but we're going to work towards the supports to put in place to ensure that it happens majority and then hopefully all of the time.
Thank you.
Great. All right, good conversation. Once again, thank you for listening. I mean, I think you heard for some time now, maybe a couple of years of our concern with ALCs. And you took it to heart. You looked at, great numbers. You put all the facts together. Your experience gives us confidence that you know what we're talking about, the two of you and your teams. Once again, I get to look at to serve every student with excellence, is because, yes, we want to set a good line to our students, but we want to keep them in school as much as possible. We need them in that building. If they're going to be coming back, we want them to understand the importance of school pride and, shipping them out for a couple days a week at a school or a building somewhere else. We want to keep those students understanding that we care about them, and they are going to be coming back. So keeping them in that diversion program is big. I'm a big proponent of option 2, obviously. At this point, I think you probably know that one pretty good. The big ask that we've had of those teachers that Ms. Wright mentioned, again, you did everything and then some and more that we asked of you while we were in that classroom. It's a great environment for the first month of the ALC in August and then again in January, but it becomes an unbearable task. And just nobody benefits when those numbers grow in a classroom, to have 20, 25, 28, 30 students of that need, and you can't fulfill that need when they're there, when you're in front of that classroom. And that's not a good feeling. It's not a good position to be as an educator. So I am very excited. Now I know you're going to work out the details. I think you just wanted to, which direction that we're looking at. I believe, I'm confident that we're going to come with option 2 eventually, and then you'll work out more details there. That diversion program, you ran very successful, and with the alcohol, and now with the behavior, I think is very important. The social workers, that was a question, but again, the school-based social workers are perfect for the onesies, twosies. I think we have to keep that in at the foremost, that these students get those services so they know what to expect when they come back into our school. So I'm excited. What a great workshop, starting with CTE, then financial literacy, and then now with these students, the ALCs. I mean, yesterday was my birthday, but I kind of think today might be.
Happy birthday, Mr. Trent.
So this is, if I could pick the 3 topics that, that this board could be a part of that could help the students of Brevard and families, it would be these 3 topics. So thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if these are like, part of me would like, can we just go have a side conversation and then we can come back? But I mean, just if you guys are willing to share, including Dr. Rendell, your thoughts and your recommendations, that would be helpful. You're the ones who are talking to our staff, both at the ALCs and at our school levels. If you're not willing, it's okay.
Well, I think Mr. Susan hasn't gone yet. I don't know.
Okay.
2, I'll just say 2. Everybody's talked enough. 2, I'm good with 2. That's me.
So I'll share some of my.
I pontificated.
I'll share some of my thoughts. First of all, I'm not convinced that our expulsion numbers would increase greatly if we went to option 2. And I'm a fan of option 2.
Oh, and by the way, that statement that I made was about either way. I mean, there are,
Sure.
the potential is to go up, right?
But those of us that have been in the district for a little while know that there are some students who committed a level 4 or 5 an infraction that in the past has been a recommendation for placement at the ALC. And they have not, either haven't gone to the ALC at all or didn't thrive at the ALC, and we lost them. So the diversion program keeps them in their home school, keeps them in their classes, maintains that strong academic track or opportunity for them. So I actually think we will not lose students with the diversion program that we would have lost if they'd been placed at the ALC or given the placement at the ALC is their only option. Some of them just didn't go to the ALC, tried private school, tried something, and then we just never got them back. So I think those will be actually net gains. And I think the main purpose of any kind of program like this is to keep them in school as much as possible. And again, so I think, we were probably all a little nervous about the drug and alcohol diversion program that we started last year. And we've actually seen great success with that. These students are given a second chance at their home school, with some restrictions. And we've learned that we need to make sure the restrictions are tighter than we thought they were tight. But so, I feel like we're going to gain some kids back that we would have lost by giving them the opportunity to stay at their home school and complete the diversion program time with the restrictions and all of that with some additional support. But I also know that a lot of the ones that there's more serious offenses, when we have offered them enrollment in the ALC, they haven't completed the ALC either.
Right.
And so those full expulsions now, expelled from the regular program, maybe we'll call it, we weren't saving them at the ALC either. So the online option might actually be better, for them, as long as we're checking them and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think any change is going to be, met with trepidation and anxiety and all that. But I think we've worked through the diversion program with drug and alcohol. And now with certain level 4 offenses qualifying for the diversion program, I think would actually be very beneficial for our students. And then, the severe level 5s, maybe it's not expulsion maybe it's not expulsion for some, it's enrollment in this online curriculum. And then, for certain offenses, you're just gone.
Right.
Expelled.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Y'all have anything to add?
So I was in the weird spot of diversion being a principal, and then being out of the principal seat when diversion was in place. So I don't really have but I can say, working with Misty, we've had the success with students completing the program. I will sum it up by saying, regardless of the way we go, it's the implementation that's going to make the key to success. It's going to be if we go option 2, it's going to be how do we handle certain infractions What is our success in regards to the online option and who's going to be eligible for that? What are we doing to support students on the campus? Because we all know that discipline and student behavior is not just isolated to that student. It's also that classroom and the other students around them. So how are we working to modify the behavior, as that's the goal of the disciplinary process? So with the diversion opportunity, providing the right supports, making sure we have the right people on the campuses, we're having the right conversations to get the result that we're looking for. With the online part, keeping students engaged with the academic process is huge. We all know that if we expel a student, majority of those students, when they're expelled, they're not truly doing much academic work, but this could be an opportunity for them to come back more prepared. I can tell you, speaking to other principals, I say other principals as if I'm still in the seat, right? Like speaking to principals in our county, we will see some very similar reactions like we did with drug diversion. The uncertainty, is this the right way to go? Like, is this going to work? We're just going to let kids stay on campus. All the questions that we've already handled 2 years ago or a year and a half ago will creep back up. So it's all about the implementation side to make sure that it's tight and that we're doing it right, and we're doing it in the best interest of students, but doing it in the best interest of school. So we will receive some uncertainty. I don't want to say pushback. I'll say uncertainty and some frustration as we go through the process. But where we would go from here is to start working with principals on what this looks like. Start working with principals to get their thoughts and feelings and opinion on the infractions and where they're placed and how we work this program and how we come to a collaborative outcome as opposed to a top-down outcome to make sure that everybody is moving in the right direction. While that could be I will say we put potential options up there, as you could do a tiered system, right, of, no option right now, is necessarily better than the other, as Ms. Wright has expressed with our modified calendars. I'm sure she's going to bring up to you guys here as we were though, but, as Mr. Trent said, like the 5 days a week going back to where it strengthened everything, strengthened this. Once again, August and September, right, very successful. And then as the numbers start to rise without earned return and the students aren't coming back to their home school, and you end up with 22, 25, 27, and potentially in a classroom, I could see the frustration on the teacher side of impact that they could have and the other concerns that go with it. But you could always do a 5 day a week, and then if that is not up to what we're looking for, the diversion, as the next step. Obviously, we're just looking to you guys for guidance on, what, James, appreciate the conversation, but this is a direction we'd really like you to pursue. But it doesn't mean we have to do one of those. We could start from 2 days or hybrid to 5 days, and if we're still not thinking that this is the right move, to diversion, or we could go right to diversion, or stay at 5 days.
Thanks for that input. I think I can start leaning towards option 2. I did want it because of the language on slide, whatever that is, slide 9 for us, that talks about who's eligible. It's clear you can only do it with the grade bands, similar to what we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. You can only do the diversion program once. So if you've already done it once, then are we taking you straight to the expelled bucket, or are we taking you to the online only option?
So I think the talk with that would be that students wouldn't necessarily be able to stay on campus, but I think we're still open to the discussion for the student to still be able to complete the online curricular aspect, because the goal is still to keep them involved in school.
Right. So we'd need to, again, if we're talking about going just verbiage, that third bullet then, all level 5 offenses will be recommended for online only placement, as well as those 4s that you determined. We to make sure that is.
Yeah, so we actually wrote it one time to say all level 5 offenses will be recommended for expulsion with possible online.
Possible, right, depending because some of those statutes. Okay, but that's what if we're talking about the students who are, they've done their one time in diversion, they can't do it anymore. If we can keep them on track with your options are online only. That's your only option,
yes.
right?
Yeah, we would have to reword some of this terminology based on the conversation,
right?
Just as we wanted to get it out and to have the discussion, and then from the discussion we'll start redlining and modifying it to a final product over the next few weeks, months, etc.
Well, I appreciate your feedback, and if we can make those changes so we have that kind of 3 bucket approach, I I can be in favor of exploring option 2.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but I know, Ms. Campbell, you had talked about something outside of the box, right? Was looking for maybe a different type of option. And we did talk to quite a few counties who were willing to kind of walk through their process with us. And this diversion program for, I'll say not all, but for more infractions would be probably the most out of the box that any district is doing, because most of them are alternative learning centers, online curricular program, expulsion, with some different discussions that go on when the infraction happens or this. So keeping students on campus, keeping them engaged in instruction, doing those things would probably be the most outside of the box
Good.
option or answer, as opposed to traditional, which is infraction, alternative learning center, online
Right.
curriculum program, expulsion.
Well, I'm kind of thinking with another year of experience, we need to take this show on the road. And we can present to FSBA FADS about our drug diversion program.
I think we get some more data.
And outcome.
Let's give us another year.
I'm just gonna, I want to add this one thing. So I'm looking at these level 4 offenses, and for what it's worth, I think there's a few on here that stand out to me that I believe warrant going to level 5. And I'm just gonna go ahead and give them to you. This may not be the board's consensus, but I'm looking at them going, I think these belong in level 5, not 4. False accusations against a staff member, I believe that should go to 5. That really can ruin someone's life and cause a lot of problems. Hazing should go to a 5, sexual assault should go to a 5, sexual harassment should go to a 5, and sexual offenses. Those are the 5 that I think really, do you have those ones already written?
Yeah, all highlighted over here.
All right, so
Those-
those ones I think really need to go to the 5. They're not 4s. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if the board's there with that, but this is something that we can even look at these and kind of give them back to you and
Oh,
see
yeah.
if you can get consensus.
Yeah, so that would be the goal.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we've vetted through level 4 of what may be 4.5 or 5, right, as we look at the program, and vetted that through Misty, myself, the secondary directors, because that's where majority of the infractions happen, and other discussions. So we have had 4 or 5 eyes on it, aligned with, the offenses that you just stated, plus a few more.
Plus a few more. Okay,
Sure.
those are
So,
the 5 that just jumped out. so.
I would actually appreciate if this is the direction that you guys are looking for us to really explore and try to get in place for 25, 26. Any feedback that you would have that could provide how we look at level 4 and what we're actually planning to move ahead. And then we could take that with a group of principals and really start fine tuning what this would look like with Misty and that group.
Absolutely. I can only assume that from hearing us here, that's the option that we're looking at. And I think, again, with your experience, your background, we're excited about now you're going to take a deep dive in there and make that even, more detailed. And I'm sure you're going to get our input. Absolutely. So we thank you for being patient with the 5 of us that you'll be hearing our suggestions, and Dr. Rendell's as well. So,
Yes. Homework is
Dr.
due
Riddle.
tomorrow.
Okay, I'm writing mine up now, so I'll turn them into you.
we need by
So
5 things.
one of the things we were looking for is a direction.
Sure.
So we got our clear direction to pursue option 2 for implementation in the coming school year, with some more work to come about what's level 4, what's level 5, what are some of the parameters. Keep in mind, there's parallel work going on with Mrs. Dampier and the discipline committee. So we will now need to take this information to the discipline committee, because one of the things they do is review the code of conduct and the level 4s and the 5, well, what levels and definitions and things like that. So we will need to incorporate this input, these recommended changes, to that committee and get their feedback as well, which they, of course, will present to you at some point. And so the board will, at some point, vote on the code of conduct, which will include the breakdown
Yeah.
of what happens if you commit this offense, what happens if you commit this offense. So this work will need to be then brought into the work that Mrs. Dampier and the discipline committee are doing. So just keep in mind, we're going to have to need, more people now involved in this process. And again, a recommendation will come to the board for approval.
Okay.
As you're probably aware, this board has appetite for change and movement if it's going to benefit, the students. And I think you see that we're not afraid to go outside the box. And with your expertise and your experience, that we feel confident in you to make those changes, and you have. So we appreciate you greatly for listening and, asking for input. And it's, again, thank you so much for your work, and we look forward to, bringing this back up at another time. Board, do you have anything else for them? I'm good. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other business to bring up? Dr. Rendell, do you have anything?
I do not have any other presentations or topics.
All right. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.